Continuing straight on with chapter 3 in Steven Batchelor, Buddhism Without Beliefs, a contemporary guide to awakening, chapter 3 entitled Anguish. And we get another quote from the Buddha who says, "No conditions are permanent, no conditions are reliable, nothing is self." Batchelor states, "It is said that until Siddhartha Gautama was in his late 20s, his father, King Suddhodana, kept him immured within palaces. Suddhodana did not wish his son to be distracted from his duty by the disquiet that reigned beyond the palace walls. The young man became restless in his incarceration and longed to go out. Suddhodana arranged tours of the town and countryside, making sure everything was perfectly arranged and nothing distressing passed before the boy's eyes. Despite these precautions, Siddhartha chanced upon a person disfigured by disease, another crippled by age, a corpse, and a wandering monk. He became uneasy upon returning to the comforts of home. One night he stole away. For 6 years he drifted around the land, studying, meditating, subjecting himself to punishing ascetic rigors. The conventional options exhausted, he sat down at the foot of a tree. 7 days later, he had an awakening in which he understood the nature of anguish, let go of its origins, realized its cessation, and brought into being a way of life. Prince Siddhartha's dilemma still faces us today. We too, we too immure ourselves in the palaces of what is familiar and secure. We too sense that there is more to life than indulging desires and warding off fears. We too feel anguish most acutely when we break out of our habitual routines and witness ourselves hovering between birth and death. Our birth and death. We discover that we have been thrown, apparently without choice, into a world not of our making. However painful the exit from the mother's uterus, it is mercifully forgotten. Not according to Stan Groff, but let's just skip that and keep going. But in achieving consciousness, we realize that the only certainty in life is that it will end. We don't like the idea. We try to forget that too. Everyone collaborates in everyone else's forgetting, conspires. Parents seek to prepare their offspring for life. Social and political institutions are there to benefit the living, not the dead. Religions largely offer consolation. Perhaps there is a chance that we won't really die after all. In one way or another, we manage to avoid the questions that existence raises, treating birth and death as physical events in time and space, the gasping of the first breath, the expelling of the last. They become isolated facts, problematic but manageable, kept at a distance from the here and now, where we are where we are safe in the business of getting through the day. Life becomes an exercise in the management of specifics. We seek to arrange the details of our world in such a way that we feel secure, surrounded by what we like, protected against what we dislike. Once our material existence is more or less in order, we may turn our attention to the psycho-management of our neuroses, failing which the worst anxieties can be kept at bay by judicious use of drugs. This approach works well enough until the unmanageable erupts again as sickness, aging, sorrow, pain, grief, despair. No matter how expertly we manage our lives, how convincing an image of well-being we project, we still find ourselves involved with what we hate and torn apart from what we love. We still don't get what we want and still get what we don't want. True, we experience joy, success, love, bliss, but in the end, we find ourselves once more prone to anguish. We may know this, but do we understand it? We may know this, but do we understand it? We see it, are even awed by it, but habit impels us to forget it, to cover it over and flee again to the lure of the tantalizing world. For were we to understand it, even in a glimpse, it might change everything. Try this exercise. Find a quiet, comfortable place. This may be just the corner of a bedroom or study. Then settle into a chair, or if you prefer, sit cross-legged on a cushion on the floor. Make sure your back is unsupported and upright but not tense. Incline your head downward so your gaze naturally falls about 3 feet in front of you. Shut your eyes. Rest your hands in your lap or on your knees. Check to see if there are any points of tension in the body, the shoulders, the neck, around the eyes. Relax them. Become aware of your bodily contact with the ground. Make sure that you are steady and balanced. Notice the subtle polyphony of sounds around you. Take note of any sensations in the body. Be conscious of your mood of the moment. Don't judge these things or seek to change them. Accept them for what they are. Take 3 long, slow, deep breaths. Don't imagine the breath as some invisible stuff entering and leaving your nostrils. Notice the bodily sensations, even the trivial ones, like the shifting contact of your skin with your undershirt, that make up the act of breathing. Then let the breathing resume its own rhythm without interfering with or controlling it. Just stay with it, letting the mind settle into the swell of the breath, like a small boat at anchor, gently rising and falling with the sea. Do this for 10 minutes. This exercise may not be as straightforward as it seems. No matter how strong your resolve to be present and concentrated, it's difficult to keep the mind from wandering off into memories, plans, or fantasies. Several minutes may pass before you even notice that you've become distracted. Normally, we are unaware of the extent to which we're distracted, for the simple reason that distraction is a state of unawareness. This kind of exercise can force us to recognize that for much of the time we fail to register what is happening here and now. We are reliving an edited version of the past. We are reliving an edited version of the past, planning an uncertain future, or indulging in being elsewhere, or running on automatic pilot without being conscious at all. And instead of a coherent personality that stretches back in an unbroken line to a first memory and looks forward to an indefinite future, we discover a self ridden with gaps and ambiguities. Who I am appears coherent only because of the monologue that we keep repeating, editing, censoring, and embellishing in our heads. The present moment hovers between past and future, just as life hovers between birth and death. The present moment hovers between past and future, just as life hovers between birth and death. We respond to both in similar ways. Just as we flee from the awesome encounter with birth and death to the safety of the manageable world, so we flee from the pulse of the present to a fantasy world. Flight is a reluctance to face change, and the anguish it implies. Flight is a reluctance to face change, and the anguish it implies. Something in us insists on a static self, a fixed image, impervious to anguish, that will either survive death intact or be painlessly annihilated. Evasion of the unadorned immediacy of life is as deep-seated as it is relentless. Even with the ardent desire to be aware and alert in the present moment, the mind flings us into tawdry and tiresome elaborations of past and future. This craving to be otherwise, to be elsewhere, permeates the body, feelings, perceptions, will, consciousness itself. It is like the background radiation from the Big Bang of birth, the aftershock of having erupted into existence. Should you persist in watching the breath, you may find that after a while your mind begins to settle. You experience longer spells of concentration before a distracting thought whisks you away. You become more adept at remembering to come back to the present. You relax and discover a poignant tranquility. This is a centered stillness from which you can engage attentively, caringly with the world. All of life is in ceaseless mutation, emerging, modifying, disappearing. The relative constancy of still, centered attention is simply a steady adjustment to the flux of what is observed. Nothing can be relied upon for security. As soon as you grasp something, it's gone. Anguish emerges from craving for life to be other than it is. Anguish emerges from craving for life to be other than it is. It is the symptom of flight from birth and death, from the pulse of the present. It is the gnawing mood of unease that haunts the clinging to me and mine. It would perhaps be better if life did not bring change, if it could be relied upon to provide lasting happiness. But since this is not true, a calm and clear understanding of what is true, that no conditions are permanent or reliable, would weaken the grip in which craving holds us. Again, it would perhaps be better if life did not bring change, if it could be relied upon to provide lasting happiness. But since this is not true, a calm and clear understanding of what is true, that no conditions are permanent or reliable, would weaken the grip in which craving holds us. Craving can vanish in awakening to the absurdity of the assumptions that underlie it. Without stamping it out or denying it, craving may be renounced the way a child renounces sandcastles, not by repressing the desire to make them, but by turning aside from an endeavor that no longer holds any interest. Without stamping it out or denying it, craving may be renounced the way a child renounces sandcastles, not by repressing the desire to make them, but by turning aside from an endeavor that no longer holds any interest. When the restless mind is stilled, we begin to encounter what is unfolding before us. This is both familiar and mysterious at the same time. In one sense, we already know this world in rare moments with nature, a lover, a work of art. Yet it also comes without warning when strolling down a busy street, staring at a sheet of paper on a desk, forming a pot on a wheel. This sense of the world vanishes as suddenly as it appears. It is something we can neither manage nor control. When we stop fleeing birth and death, the grip of anguish is loosened, and existence reveals itself as a question. When we stop fleeing birth and death, the grip of anguish is loosened, and existence reveals itself as a question. When Siddhartha encountered a person disfigured by disease, one crippled by age, a corpse, and a wandering monk, he was not only struck by the tragedy of anguish, but thrown into questioning. He was thrown into questioning. Yet the questions he asked were not the sort he could stand back from, reflect on, and arrive at a rational answer to. He realized that he himself was subject to disease, aging, and death. The questioner was nothing other than the question itself. The questioner was nothing other than the question itself. The pivotal moment of human consciousness, it becomes a question for itself. Such a question is a mystery, not a problem. It cannot be solved by meditation techniques through the authority of a text. Upon submission to the will of a guru, such strategies merely replace the question with beliefs in an answer. As this kind of question becomes clearer, it becomes more puzzling too. The understanding it generates does not provide consoling facts about the nature of life. This questioning probes ever deeper into what is still unknown. That was chapter 3 in Steven Batchelor, Buddhism Without Beliefs, entitled Anguish. Again, the words of the Buddha: no conditions are permanent, no conditions are reliable, nothing is self.